What's up, guys? Welcome back to Storytime with Uncle Jon. Hey, that's me. Today we're taking a look at r/PettyRevenge. Nothing like a good revenge story. Hopefully we've got a few in here. Yep, just getting my week started here on a Monday. You'll see this on Tuesday, of course. And trying to get some stuff ready, some equipment for the bridge house. I can't remember what it's called still, but anyway. If you don't know, I work part-time as a bridge tender, and my plan is on Saturdays when I have my super duper long shift, and as long as things are quiet and there aren't a bunch of boats trying to get through the bridge, then we'll record an episode or two. So make sure you stick around for that. Usually that'll come out either Sunday or Monday when I do those videos, and something a little different background. I got to talk with my boss first. I know I can record videos while I'm there. That's not a problem. I can edit my videos. The thing that people are asking for is, little recorded snippets of how, the bridge going up and down, which that may not be an issue, but showing exactly how the bridge, like how to make it go up and down, how to operate it, that might be an issue. So let me feel them out. I'm a little new there, so I don't want to push boundaries too fast. And, maybe we can get some cool video shots of that. Anyway, let's do some petty revenge. Don't return my deposit? Then I'll quadruple what you owe me. Around 2015, I house shared with a live-in landlord. We'll call him D-Head. Let's call him Bellend. Anyway, there was me and two other dudes who lived there with Bellend. He set a rotor in rotation to clean the house weekly. He wasn't on the rotor, of course. I always dreaded the bathroom when it was my turn, as when he'd brush his teeth, his used foamy toothpaste would be all over the mirror with beard shavings stuck to it and piss all over the seat. Classy. It was always Bellend doing this, and it pissed the rest of us off. And then there was the garden. He has a dog which obviously shits, so whoever is on garden duty has to pick the shit up. I mean, what are we all paying rent for? Anyway, it must have been a bad week for me, as it was my turn to do the bathroom, and yet again, foamy toothpaste, beard shit was all over the mirror again, and Bellend decided he didn't want to flush his crap either. I went straight downstairs where Bellend was in the kitchen with the other dudes, and I called him out on it, and said it was completely unacceptable leaving the bathroom in that state. Bellend went bright red in the face and denied it completely. I said he was full of shit just like the toilet upstairs. Then he stated if I didn't like living there, then I'm welcome to leave. I walked back upstairs and started packing my things, as he was right. I didn't like living there. As I was packing the car, he came out and boasted that he didn't care I was leaving and that he'd have a replacement for my room by the end of the week. I went to stay back at my parents' house until I found a new place to live. It was the next day and I'd messaged Bellend about getting my 400-pound room deposit back. I'd left the room as is and made sure it was clean to ensure I'd get it back. He didn't reply until 11 p.m. saying, "You won't be getting it back, you didn't do your weekly chores and left early without notice." I stated he said I was welcome to leave and didn't say anything while I was packing my things. I then said, "I'll be getting that deposit back." Then he said, "Is that a threat?" I said, "No, it's a promise." I drove over there. It was about midnight. I was banging and banging on the door. No answer, of course. I knew he'd phoned the police, but I waited. Sure enough, police arrived. I calmly looked over to the two police officers at the end of the drive and said, "All right, fellas." They asked why I was banging on this guy's door at midnight. I walked over to them and explained the situation. They said to come back at a better time of day or take him to small claims court. They were right. I knew that anyway, as I was there out of anger. Weeks and weeks go by and he's totally ghosted me. I couldn't let Bellend get away with this, so I made a plan. I knew he was always in bed by 10 p.m. and I knew he was a heavy sleeper. He'd spent 2,000 pounds on a new carpet for downstairs, so I went over about 3 a.m. Just outside the front door was a hose. Oh, God. I got the hose, stuck it in through the letterbox, switched it on, and left. Oh, my God. The next day, one of the housemates let me know that it wasn't found until 8 a.m. the next morning, so that hose had been running for 5 hours. Also, some added notes about Bellend. He was a 45-year-old driving instructor. He'd always bring back young girls, never the guys, after their lessons for a rundown of the lesson. He had a lot of complaints about inappropriate touching during lessons, etc., and would always make comments about the girls he was teaching that day. Guy was a total creep. Okay, so my mind when I read the title for this video was basically you were going to take him to small claims court. Now, a lot of places here in the U.S., if the guy doesn't give your deposit back within 30 days or whatever, and you left the room as it was supposed to, and left under the correct circumstances, then you get penalties, or, you're allowed to collect penalties from the other guy in the form of extra money. If they don't give you your deposit back, you can collect, your deposit plus double it. for the troubles, I guess. This is the UK, so I'm not sure. But in most countries, including the UK, I'm pretty sure that sticking the hose through the letterbox because he didn't give you your deposit is malicious destruction of property. At least here in the US it is. And that's not really cool either. I get the sentiment. I get wanting to do it. I get why you did it. But it's not proper. And it could end up costing you more in the long run if they can even come close to proving that you were the one that stuck it in the letterbox. So be careful out there, kids. Run over my foot? Let me max out your shopping bull then. Bull or bill? Bull doesn't make sense, but we'll see. You know, strange stories around here. This was quite a few years back. I may still need therapy, but my revenge was timely, petty, and very satisfying. One fateful evening, I cycled over to Waitrose, or Waitrose, an upmarket UK supermarket for posh people and vegans, to top up on gin and privilege. Due to the cycling and my general lack of neatness, I was very casually attired and represented this scruffy, bald hippie demographic. As I was weaving down the aisle, passing overstocked hummus shelves and avoiding the BMW crowd, someone pushed their trolley over my foot. Like, really over it. They committed enough energy and momentum to overcome said organic obstacle and lifted their trolley the necessary inches to roll up, across, then down my delicate and sensitive tootsies. I said, ow! Actually, I said something slightly more whiny and pathetic, but for the purposes of this article, let's go with the ever so slightly more butch, ow. I then looked around at the perpetrator of this heinous violation of my person, expectant and ready for the apology and groveling that was my due. She then ignored me. She ignored me, stuck her nose up in the air, deliberately looked away, and continued to roll her trolley / Mad Max vehicle of destruction along the organic entitlement and juice aisle. There was no way, none, that she hadn't noticed. She pushed. She knew. Ugh. I was confused. This was Waitrose, not Aldi, where a certain amount of bruising is par for the course. Certainly not Lidl, where the low-intensity gang warfare between the monthly offers posse and the ruck around the just out of date and now with added listeria bargain row leaves you with PTSD. No, this was the safe place, the comfort zone. This did not happen here. I studied my nemesis, those days we didn't know of the Karen. We hadn't classified, inventory, and categorized said beast, but if we had, this would have been the greater faux-furred, bleached blonde elder Karen with principles, entitlement, and pretty strong legs to get over my shoes. Probably drove a Porsche SUV. So I followed her, while obviously stocking up on well-aged brie, some bespoke marmalade, and breadsticks, waiting for my moment. So first, a bit of context. Waitrose has, or had, a fairly simple self-service shopping system. You enroll, swipe a card on arrival, pick up a scanning gun and trolley scan your items as you shop, and then take the gun to an express checkout with a human cashier where you pay. Simple. I was driving one of these, and so was Karen Footbreaker, and this was her downfall. She parked in the booze section where I just happened to be, and then she tottered over to berate a defenseless young assistant about something. Poor lad. And in doing so, she left her trolley, complete with scanning gun, unattended. Pleasure me backwards with a well-buttered chainsaw. Yes, please. What the hell? Without a moment's hesitation, I grabbed her gun, spun around to face the single malt whiskey section, found a nice bottle of Ardbeg, and thanking all those long nights of playing Call of Duty, aimed and pulled that trigger like a zombie hordes were upon me. Not once, not twice, not any sane number of times. I reckon somewhere over 15 times I scanned that barcode, several hundred pounds of Ardbeg, which I recommend, well-rounded, slightly medicinal, but very flavorful. Got stuffed into her shopping bill, but not into her trolley. No, nothing suspicious which might give the game away. Grinning like a loon, I rushed off, out and onto my bike. Yes, I paid. No, I didn't get the organic truffle-flavored mayonnaise. I just wanted out. She ran me over for fun. Who knows what she would have done if she caught me when angered. And so outside the shop I waited, watching through the window as, with not the slightest inkling of the joy about to unfold, she finished her shop of premium ready meals for one and went to the cashier to cash out. Now I had no idea what she bought, but she had a teeny tiny trolley for the sad, lonely people. Yes, I had the same. So it can't have been too much. Maybe 20 pounds, 30 pounds. Certainly not the tenfold increase those beautiful non-existent amber bottles of joy had accumulated. Easily 200 to 300 pounds extra. To be honest, if judging only by the shade of puce and the amount of vigorous arm waving that ensued, possibly even more, when the cashier told her the bill. I even observed foot stamping. Oh yes, thus enriched and crunching on a breadstick, I left. The world now being a better place, except for the poor lass on the self-service counter who had to deal with the fallout. Okay, I like when stories are written like that. There's just something so satisfying about adding those little details, you know? I honestly am a little envious. I wish I could write like that. I guess I could if I sat down and really thought about it, but it doesn't come easily to me. Now this, I gotta say, was a nice, I wouldn't say wholesome, but it was a fairly harmless little prank to pull in retribution for somebody, you know, pretty much running over your foot, possibly intentionally. I'm just glad this didn't happen in modern times because let me tell you, the modern Karen, I'm pretty sure she would have backed up and did it again just for the satisfaction of watching your face, the agony come across your face. But anyway, I'll have to look up that booze. I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds nice. I don't know about the medicinal part, but we'll see. Nothing like a good smooth whiskey or bourbon. I know it's the same thing. Whiskey is bourbon and bourbon is whiskey, but you know, whatever. Paper thief gets his time stolen one paper at a time. Colin had always been the office nuisance. Everyone knew it, but no one ever said a word. At first I didn't think much of it. He seemed harmless enough, just that guy who borrowed things and never gave them back. Pens, staplers, sticky notes, even the occasional snack disappeared whenever Colin wandered by my desk. Annoying, but nothing to lose sleep over. Then came the paper. Oh, the paper. I'd buy a pack of printer paper for my reports, keep it neatly tucked under my desk, and without fail, within a few days, it would vanish. Every single time. I knew it was Colin. Who else would take reams of paper? But management wasn't going to step in over something so small, and I didn't feel like stirring up office drama. So I bit my tongue and kept replacing it. One day, after running out of paper for the third time that month, I decided enough was enough. If Colin wanted paper so badly, I was going to give it to him. But on my terms. The next day, I brought in the cheapest, most god-awful paper I could find. The kind that jams the printer if you look at it wrong. Thin, crinkly, practically translucent. I set it on my desk, making sure Colin would see it. I even put a little note on top that read, "My paper, please do not take." Of course, Colin ignored the note. By lunch, the pack was gone, just as I expected. I knew what was coming next, and I could barely contain my glee. The printer jam started almost immediately. From across the room, I could hear the frustrated grunts and the angry pounding of the copy machine. Colin was struggling. Hard. Every time he tried to print something, the paper would crumple, jam, or come out wrinkled beyond recognition. And every time I printed, my documents came out perfectly smooth. I had hidden my real stash of quality paper in a drawer, just waiting for moments like these. This went on for weeks. Colin kept stealing my terrible paper, and I kept watching him struggle with it. Eventually, he gave up trying to take anything from my desk. The printer in his corner was a permanent mess of crumpled pages. Meanwhile, I sailed through my work without a hitch. I never confronted him, and he never knew what I had done, but I could tell from the way he avoided my desk that he was done with his little thefts. I was pretty sure, but the satisfaction I got from watching him struggle with that awful paper was worth every second. That's funny. Steal my shit, I'm going to make it so the next thing you steal makes your life impossible. We had a guy, every time we would break for lunch on the construction site, you know, we're wearing these tool belts that latch around your waist. Most of us hadn't yet caught on to the, wearing the suspenders, the braces to hold up your tool belt so that they didn't drag your pants down over your butt crack. But anyway, every time we would break for lunch, we would either, take off our tool belts and set them on the floor or stick a nail partway into the wall at about eye level, so you had to be careful of that, and hang your tool belt from that nail. I liked hanging mine up in case somebody came along, they didn't trip over it, they didn't, sweep it up with the garbage, whatever. So get it out of the way and everything's good with the world. We'd come back from lunch and, without fail, somebody had gone through our nail pouches and they'd take the nails, the screws, whatever. And, honestly, it's annoying, but they're the job site nails and screws. So hopefully this guy was at least using them on the job site. I doubt it. He was probably putting them in a big coffee can and taking them home for his, spare hardware drawer. That was one thing, and it was annoying. But when he got to the point where he was stealing our pencils, so you buy these special flattened carpenter's pencils because they're easier to mark wood with, they last a little longer, they're easier to find in your pouch, things like that. Your utility knife, your box cutter, whatever you want to call it. He would take small tools. My speed square would go disappearing. I mean, I can make a speed square, the little triangle squares. I could make those things last for 20, 30 years without any of them bending, breaking, the numbers wearing off, whatever. It's just ridiculous that I have to replace one that's less than a month old. One time he even stole somebody's whole pouch. So what we started doing was we found out who it was. Somebody saw him one day actually doing it. So what we started doing is we would take his nail pouch, like he would do his little swipe and he'd go through the building and he'd go out to his car. While he was out of his car, somebody would come in and take their screw gun and screw his nail pouch down to the floor so that every time he came in, he would have to unscrew all those screws just to get his tool pouch and put it on. The first time he did it, though, was fabulous because he actually was trying to walk by his pouch really quickly and just scoop it up off the floor so that he could keep walking and put it on. Well, as he did that, he kind of pulled himself right down to the floor. He basically tackled himself. It was funny to watch, and he pretty much, after the second time of us screwing his stuff down to the floor, stopped stealing anything. In fact, after about 2 weeks after that, I think he ended up quitting. So, because, everybody's mean to me. No, piss off. My noisy neighbors. 4 years ago, I had a house built in a new development less than a half hour outside of my hometown. At first, it was a dream come true. I was excited to be a new homeowner, but shortly after moving in, I started to become aware of my next-door neighbors. They would constantly be throwing parties well into the AM hours. Their lawn would be covered in trash the next day, and it would blow all around the neighborhood. At first, I thought maybe they're just throwing some housewarming get-togethers to get settled in, so I gave them some slack and let it slide. Unfortunately, this was only the beginning. 3 to 4 days out of the week, there would be excessive noise late into the night coming from that house. By this time, I've been calling the cops so much, when they pick up, they just say they're on their way. I've submitted countless HOA complaints, and yet this still keeps happening. On one specific occasion, they were throwing a children's birthday party, and they were using a PA system in their backyard. Now, I don't live out in the country. In fact, we're in city limits, and the houses are quite close to each other. Not to mention the backyards aren't even that big. Why on earth would these people need a PA system of all things? Well, the noise was just absolutely unbearable, and this time it was the entire street that called in noise complaints. When the cops arrived and were talking to the owners of the noisy house, they straight up told the cop, "Well, I don't care." After this incident, I filed one more HOA complaint threatening to take legal action against their company unless they did something about this. And as if I said the magic words, they got fined and there hasn't been a party there since. Now on to the petty revenge. The guy next door is a construction worker and has a brutal weekday schedule. Weekends are his time to relax. For the past 4 years, every Saturday, I've been mowing my lawn at 6 a.m., starting on his side. Sometimes I just sit there and chill on my phone for about 10 minutes while the mower's running right outside his bedroom window. Saturday mornings are my favorite time of the week. You're going to have a party once in a while. You're going to make a little excessive noise once in a while. But when it becomes a lifestyle and you're absolutely torturing all your neighbors, be prepared. If the cops won't do it, if the HOA won't do it, and I don't have to deal with an HOA because I absolutely refuse to live inside where there's an HOA. No way in hell. Anyway, so, local, state cops, whoever, somebody's going to be involved legally. If the guy still doesn't get the hint, there will be some kind of revenge. Might be time to, buy another hot rod project or, another motorcycle who's just happens to have no baffles in its pipes. And, of course, when you work on them, you have to do the ubiquitous revving all, I don't know. I had a neighbor with a jet ski. He would get out his little toolkit and he'd set it up on the fender of his trailer and pull the engine cover off of his Sea-Doo, and he'd tinker on it for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then he'd start it up, with it hooked up to the hose and everything, and he'd and he'd do that for like 5 solid minutes. And then he'd put his tools away, put the engine cover on, and go back inside. Like, the guy didn't do anything. He didn't change anything. He didn't change any timing. He didn't change fuel mixture. He didn't do whatever. He didn't do anything. I don't know if he was just trying to feel important because he, made a tool touch the machine. I don't know. I can't stand those people, but I will turn into one of those people if I had neighbors who continually have parties and leave trash all over the neighborhood. So keep that in mind if you ever move in near me. Deer camp. I just had a vision. Hello, mother. Hello, father. Anyway. The setting is deer camp. Dude joins a neighboring hunting club. Rule is they can't put up a stand within 300 yards of another club member's stand. So dude builds a stand right on the edge of their club's lease, blocking a trail that takes us from one side of our lease to the other and 50 yards from one of our stands. Technically, there's nothing we can do. He's on his club's property by 10 feet and not near any other of his club's stands. We didn't want to start a war, so we moved our stand away from there. Guess we now have a place to dump our gut piles, dead varmints, and, well, last night's dinner. Last seen, his feeder was destroyed by the hogs, and driving past his stand was an excruciating exercise in vomit control, thanks to some decaying varmints. Oh yeah, gut piles and dead varmints, nuisance animals, that can get nasty real quick. Now, normally, if I'm on a farm and I'm taking care of nuisance animals and, you know, I'm not just going to throw them in the trash or anything like that. I want them to be out in the open in the farm field, you know, usually near one of the drainage ditches, so that they're visible to all the eagles, ospreys, and buzzards. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. To the buzzards, and foxes, so that they can just come along, take care of things their way, and you know, everybody gets fed and gets a snack, and we're all happy. But when you start making solid piles of them, yeah, it's it can get pretty nasty pretty quick. I will tell you, depending on where you are in the country, some parts of the country, the hogs will come in and destroy feeders and everything else. They'll destroy anything around the gut piles. Then in other parts of the country, you have bears. Now, bears don't necessarily, they don't usually eat meat and things like that. So the discard piles are more of a, like it's like a bear spa day. You ever have one of those nasty dogs who will roll in anything, including and up to its own excrement? Well, bears sort of get like that with gut piles. They will play in it. By the way, if you're ever out hiking in the woods, like long term, and you have to dig a cat hole in the ground to do your business, make sure you dig it deep, like real deep, and bury it well, because bears will play in that too. So, yuck. So then you got a bear who's curious and always hanging around to see what new things arrive in that pile. And if it's right under your stand, then yeah, you're going to be kind of screwed when it comes time to climbing in your stand. So yeah, don't be that guy. The shopping cart theory. Hi there, long-time lurker, first-time poster, so please be gentle as I don't post on Reddit normally. Last year I had to run to my local supermarket to grab a few things, and as I was going to park, some entitled lady decided she didn't need to put her shopping cart in the return area that wasn't even 30 feet away, and ended up leaving it in the parking spot I was about to turn into. She avoided eye contact with me as I begrudgingly reversed and parked on the opposite side of her car, so she had to look at me. Instead, she looked down at her phone, hoping I would just move on. Now, I'm not normally a petty person or like confrontation, but if I remember correctly, I had had a long day of running errands, and this was the icing on the cake. As a firm believer in the shopping cart theory, I took matters into my own hands. I took the shopping cart that was right next to her window and rolled it behind her car, knowing she had a rear view camera, so she wouldn't hit it, unless she was totally ignorant of her surroundings. I was quite literally shaking as I walked into the store, thinking this was the worst thing I've ever done. I even called my parents asking if I was a horrible person. I was so worried that she'd be waiting for me at my car since it was so obvious I had done it. But when I had got back, her car was gone and the shopping cart had been returned to its rightful place. So all's well that ends well, I guess. Thanks for reading, and remember to return your shopping carts. I will say, people like that are extremely annoying. I don't understand. I'm not saying that I never occasionally will leave a shopping cart unreturned. I try not to make a habit of it, but there are times when it's pouring down like god-awful rain and I don't happen to have rain gear, I will leave the cart out. But I will also at the very least, make sure the shopping cart is up and out of the way, like, you know, near the parking block or between spaces, like at the line where like 4 cars would come together, that little intersection there. You know, at least something like that. Now, if it's windy, I will go ahead and take the time to put it back in the cart corral, because otherwise it's going to blow into somebody's car. And, you know, my cars are old. I don't care. You know, I get little dings and scratches, whatever. I don't care. But, you know, then you got somebody down the lane with some pretty car that they intentionally parked out of the way so that they wouldn't get scratched or dinged or whatever. And, you know, here comes some jackass's cart blowing across the parking lot. So I try not to do that. But for the most part, I will return my carts because, you know, it's just a good thing to do. And as far as the worst thing you've ever done, oh my gosh, you never touched the lady's car. You didn't stand there and yell at her. There's a guy on YouTube who, I can't remember what the channel's name is, but he's like the shopping cart narc. He will harass you, harangue you. He will throw magnets onto your car that says, you know, I didn't put my shopping cart back or whatever. This starts becoming borderline like harassment, and it's not borderline, it's actual harassment. And, you know, when you start tossing things onto another person's car, that can be considered vandalism in most states here in the U.S. So, you know, don't touch people's shit. They didn't put their cart back. It's annoying. You know, maybe, you know, flip them off, call them an asshole, whatever, but don't touch their car. And definitely don't get up in their face, because in some states, that's a good way to get ventilated. With that being said, pushing it up behind somebody's car after you saw them leave it right in the middle of a parking space or in the middle of the travel aisle, why not? It didn't hurt her car. It didn't touch her car. And like you said, unless she's totally oblivious, she's got to see it on her camera and she'll have to put it back in park, get out and move the cart. Maybe it'll cause her to think a little next time. All right, guys, till the next video, stay safe, stay happy, put your carts back, and don't be that noisy a-hole neighbor. And don't put your deer stand near mine.